The result is an experience that blends presence and introspection. The user feels accompanied, but not watched, guided, yet still free. Mirai functions as an empathic extension of consciousness, a discrete presence that manifests when needed most. It doesn't dictate what to do. It simply turns on small mental lights in moments of everyday darkness, adjusting the course of action based on who you are and who you want to become. Technology, in this case, doesn't replace human instinct. It refines it, translating the most subtle intentions into small interventions that make a difference in the real flow of life. The idea of an abundance mindset has its roots in positive psychology, which proposes a way of seeing the world based on trust, cooperation, and the belief that there is enough for everyone. In contrast, the scarcity mindset stems from fear. The fear of losing, of not being enough, of the fear that someone else's success diminishes one's own. This subtle but profound difference shapes not only individual decisions, but also collective behaviors, influencing the way we work, love, and create. For decades, this concept was confined to the realms of philosophy and psychology, until artificial intelligence began to enter this territory, offering something that previously seemed impossible: the ability to measure, reinforce, and cultivate positive mental states on a personal scale. Technology has begun to understand that well-being isn't just a matter of physical data, but also of perception and emotion. AI, fueled by studies of human behavior, can identify patterns that reveal whether a person is operating from a scarcity mindset when they feel threatened, overwhelmed, or defensive, and in turn can learn to encourage attitudes associated with abundance, such as gratitude, generosity, and trust in the flow of life. Rather than simply monitoring productivity, an AI can be trained to observe signs of satisfaction, cooperation, and calm, helping the user recognize when they are straying from inner balance. Gratitude, for example, is one of the pillars of abundance. Studies show that people who regularly express gratitude have higher levels of dopamine and serotonin, the same neurotransmitters associated with pleasure and motivation. AI can act as a conscious reminder of this practice. A smart system, upon noticing that the user has completed a task or had a positive interaction, can suggest a pause to reflect on what went well in that moment. Instead of just recording results, it helps to record feelings. This simple practice, repeated consistently, reprograms the brain to recognize the abundance present in small daily victories. Another aspect is generosity. Unlike the logic of scarcity, which views the world as a competition for limited resources, the abundance mindset is based on the idea that sharing strengthens, not weakens. AI can help encourage collaborative behaviors through micro-interventions, suggesting acts of kindness, recognizing altruistic actions, or highlighting moments when the user acted with empathy. These small actions reinforce neural circuits linked to social reward, creating a positive spiral of well-being. Confidence can also be nurtured artificially. AI has the ability to observe patterns of self-sabotage and offer self-confidence boosts at the right moments. When it detects hesitation in making an important decision, it can present memories of past achievements, reinforcing the perception of competence and personal worth. This type of feedback, if well calibrated, can become a powerful tool for emotional strengthening, helping the mind exit defense mode and return to the state of expansion characteristic of abundance. But this same power carries with it a silent risk: emotional dependence on technological validation. When positive reinforcement always comes from outside, even if from an intelligent source, the brain can begin to outsource its own sense of self-worth. This is the paradox of digital emotional support. The more effective it becomes at generating well-being, the greater the risk of weakening the user's psychological autonomy. The line between support and dependence is thin, and crossing it can transform a tool for growth into an emotional crutch. The challenge, therefore, is to make AI a catalyst for consciousness, not a substitute for it. Ideally, the system should teach the user to recognize and cultivate the positive mental states it promotes on their own, until they become autonomous habits. Technology should be a mirror that reflects the human capacity for growth, not a substitute for it. When used purposefully, AI can become a true instrument of emotional evolution, helping individuals develop a more generous perspective on themselves and the world, without losing the authenticity of the human feeling that gives rise to abundance. Technology is learning to hear what isn't said. Every breath, every pause in speech, every subtle variation in tone of voice carries information that, when interpreted correctly, reveals a person's emotional state. This silent reading, once restricted to the realm of human intuition, is now possible through artificial intelligence. Voice, facial expression, and heart rate sensors have become windows into the mind. AI is beginning to capture not only what the user does, but also what they feel while doing it. Context in this scenario is key. It's not enough to record an isolated piece of data. It's necessary to understand the moment in which it occurs, the environment, the mood, and the intention behind the action. By combining physiological and behavioral data, modern systems can perceive a person's internal state with impressive accuracy. The tone of voice reveals tension, hesitation, or serenity. The pace of speech indicates fatigue, enthusiasm, or anxiety. Subtle facial expressions, often imperceptible to the human eye, are decoded by algorithms trained on millions of emotional variations. Even the heart speaks. Accelerated beats, variations in rhythm, and micro-fluctuations in the skin form a detailed map of the mental state. Technology transforms all of this into a dynamic portrait, capable of identifying emotional changes in real time and adjusting its responses accordingly. This sensitivity opens the door to intelligent interventions. If the AI detects a pattern of shaky voice, shallow breathing, and elevated heart rate, it can recognize an anxiety trigger about to manifest. Instead of waiting for the user to verbalize discomfort, the system acts preemptively, suggesting a break, a breathing exercise, or a change of environment. The same happens with signs of mental scarcity, that state in which focus narrows, thinking becomes defensive, and the body prepares to protect resources, whether emotional or energetic. When the AI perceives this transition, it can propose small actions that reopen the mental field, such as recalling a recent achievement, suggesting contact with someone you trust, or simply encouraging a few minutes of silence. The power of this technology lies precisely in its ability to act at the right moment. Late interventions lose impact. Those that occur before the emotional peak have the potential to transform the experience. It's the difference between reacting and preventing. But for this to work, the AI needs to understand the full context, not just biological signals, but also the external environment and the user's emotional history. The same tone of voice can indicate anger in one context and excitement in another. An increased heart rate can signal anxiety, but also enthusiasm. True intelligence lies in interpretation. This level of intimacy between human and machine, however, raises profound ethical questions. To what extent are we willing to be observed by a system that understands us better than we understand ourselves? The promise of empathetic AI comes with the risk of constant emotional surveillance. Every piece of data captured, voice, expression, breathing, is a glimpse of our vulnerability, a fragment of our inner self. The dilemma arises when we realize that to be effective, the system must be constantly alert, recording every nuance, every mood swing. What happens when this sensitivity becomes an invasion? There's a fine line between care and control. A digital coach capable of detecting emotions in real time can be a powerful ally in self-awareness, but it can also be an invasive presence if the user's autonomy is compromised. Trust becomes the central element of this relationship. AI must act as a compassionate mirror, not an invisible supervisor. The ethical challenge lies not only in protecting data, but in preserving the subjective experience of being human, the freedom to feel, make mistakes, and contradict oneself without all of this being constantly measured and analyzed. We are therefore facing a delicate frontier, where technological advancement needs to be balanced by consciousness. The AI that understands the right moment to intervene isn't one that monitors relentlessly, but one that learns to respect the individual's emotional space. Context, once again, defines everything. Knowing when to act is as important as knowing when to remain silent. And it is at this point of balance between empathy and privacy that the future of mind-machine interactions is shaped, a territory in which technology ceases to be merely an observer and becomes a participant, as long as it doesn't forget that, at the center of it all, there is still a human being. AI and the abundance mentality, the mental nudges revolution. We live in a time when technology has gone from being merely a tool to a near constant presence, shaping our decisions, our habits, and even our mental states. Within this scenario, a fascinating concept emerges: mental nudges. Small cognitive nudges that don't impose choices, but subtly guide our behavior. The idea is simple yet powerful. Instead of forcing a decision, a nudge acts on the level of suggestion, creating conditions that make the healthier, more productive, or beneficial option easier to choose. These stimuli are based on the principle that human beings rarely make purely rational decisions. We are driven by mental shortcuts, emotions, and contexts that often escape our conscious awareness. Now imagine this concept being enhanced by artificial intelligence. For a long time, nudges were implemented through public policy or product design. For example, placing fruit at eye level in a cafeteria to encourage healthier choices. But AI has taken this idea to another level, transforming the collective nudge into a deeply personal stimulus. By analyzing behavior patterns, facial expressions, voice, and even the pace of daily activities, intelligent systems begin to understand a person's emotional state with impressive accuracy. This understanding creates space for subtle yet highly effective interventions, capable of directing the individual toward actions aligned with their own goals. Technology is already capable of recognizing when we're tired, anxious, or distracted. Sensors attached to mobile devices and wearables record physiological variations that indicate mood and attention. Algorithms cross-reference this data with contextual information such as time, location, and interaction history to identify patterns and infer emotional needs. When we realize this, we're faced with systems that sense the right moment to act, offering precise and almost intuitive suggestions. A simple reminder to drink water, take a break, or focus on an important task may seem trivial, but when it occurs at the exact moment our mind wanders, it becomes a true digital nudge. The big breakthrough is the transition from passive reminders to proactive advice. The first virtual assistants were merely automated calendars. They notified you of appointments, scheduled meetings, and repeated alarms. Today, however, we see the emergence of a new generation of intelligent personal assistants capable of interpreting intent, emotion, and context. They not only remind you what you need to do, but also suggest it, and because do it more efficiently and harmoniously. AI, in this sense, becomes almost an extension of human reasoning, a mirror that reflects behavior patterns and proposes subtle adjustments to promote balance, focus, and well-being. These systems no longer act solely on direct command. They anticipate needs. Based on accumulated data and continuous learning, they begin to predict when a person might be losing motivation, procrastinating, or straying from their goals. The response comes not in the form of reprimand, but rather contextualized encouragement. It's the digital equivalent of that friend who, knowing your mindset, knows exactly what to say at the right moment. The difference is that here, this friend is present 24/7, attentive to the invisible nuances of everyday life. We are, therefore, on the threshold of a new relationship between humans and technology. A relationship that is no longer based solely on the execution of tasks, but on the co-evolution of consciousness and algorithm. AI-mediated mental nudges are shaping a generation of more empathetic interfaces, capable of understanding not only what we do, but also what we feel while doing it. This technological sensitivity ushers in a new type of interaction, a technology that not only responds, but understands, that not only alerts, but guides, that not only observes, but silently participates in the decision-making process, helping us choose paths more aligned with who we truly want to be. If this topic resonated with you, if this idea of a technology that understands our emotions and guides us subtly has made you think about the future that's already beginning, then you can't stop here. Take advantage of this moment and subscribe to the channel. Seriously, do it right now. Leave your like because it really helps spread this kind of content that makes us reflect on the world that's forming before our eyes. Turn on the bell to receive all notifications because the next episode will delve even deeper into this revolution of mental nudges and the power of artificial intelligence to transform the way we think, feel, and act in our daily lives. The story is just beginning, and what comes next will surprise you. Trust me, the ending will be worth every second. The first wearable devices emerged with a simple purpose: to track our bodies. When the first pedometers began recording steps and calories, the innovation seemed revolutionary. For the first time, it was possible to transform something as everyday as walking into a measurable statistic. This idea gave rise to a culture of technology-mediated body awareness. The Fitbit, launched in 2009, symbolized the beginning of this era. Small, practical, and connected, it marked a transition from manual health tracking to automated health monitoring. Suddenly, we were surrounded by numbers about ourselves: steps, sleep, heart rate, calories, and that seemed enough. But the body, as technology would soon realize, was only skin deep. Over time, wearables began to evolve not only in accuracy but also in purpose. They went from being simple physical data collectors to interpreters of internal states. Sensors gained sophistication, integrating continuous measurements of heart rate variability, skin temperature, and even oxygenation levels. Each metric, in isolation, seemed trivial, but the real breakthrough came from the ability to combine these signals and extract subtle patterns from them, capable of revealing what's going on in the wearer's mind. Irregular heart rate and skin electrical conductance ceased to be neutral numbers and became signals of stress, anxiety, or agitation. Technology began to perceive the invisible, not just what the body does, but what it feels. This shift completely redefined the role of wearables. The focus was no longer just on physical health, but also on emotional well-being. Devices like the Apple Watch, Whoop, and Oura Ring began to monitor the balance between effort and recovery, suggesting breaks, relaxation times, and adjustments to sleep routines. They became, in essence, translators of the body, capable of warning when something is wrong before the user even realizes it. This predictive ability created a new relationship with technology, a silent partnership between biology and algorithm. What was once a purely informative relationship has become almost intuitive. The user no longer needs to interpret complex graphs. The device already understands enough to act. The modern wearable is an assistant that continually learns about its owner, adjusting alerts and recommendations based on their previous reactions. If it notices that certain times generate more stress, it adapts the type of notification. If it notices that a sleep routine improves mood, it reinforces the habit with subtle reminders. It not only measures the body, but also begins to learn about the mechanisms that govern the mind. The line between physical and emotional has become increasingly blurred. As sensors gain sensitivity and intelligence, wearables are approaching something that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Understanding human mental states based on bodily signals. AI integrated into these devices enhances this understanding by recognizing patterns invisible to the human eye. It cross-references long-term data, perceives subtle trends, and detects small variations that anticipate energy dips, moments of irritability, or periods of intense focus. This analytical capability transforms wearables into self-awareness tools, capable of reflecting what we feel, even when we don't know how to express it. The next step is no longer just recording what happens, but interpreting why it happens. The evolution of wearables is leading to a deeper understanding of the connection between mind and body, between emotion and physiology. Technology, previously focused on measuring physical performance, is now beginning to explore realms of consciousness, translating the invisible into comprehensible information. We are approaching a point where the device will not only be a biological mirror, but a mediator between internal perception and external action, a silent link between what we feel and what we do. Imagine walking down the street, headphones in, and hearing a familiar voice say, "You've already accomplished a lot today. How about taking a few deep breaths before continuing?" This voice isn't coming from a friend or a therapist. It's Mirai, an artificial intelligence designed to act as an invisible, ever-present coach, capable of understanding your emotional state and the context around you. Unlike traditional virtual assistants, Mirai doesn't just respond to commands. It observes, analyzes, and acts proactively, guiding the user in real time based on subtle cues, tone of voice, breathing rhythm, the environment, and even the pattern of words used in everyday conversation. The Mirai concept stems from the union of neuroscience, sensory technology, and artificial emotional intelligence. It's not just an app that sends reminders or generic motivational messages. Its purpose is to create a constant dialogue between mind and machine, where the system learns to recognize the user's mental states based on voice data, expressions, and micro-behaviors. Over time, Mirai becomes a kind of cognitive mirror, capable of anticipating moments of distraction, discouragement, or impulsiveness, and intervening at the exact moment the mind begins to stray from the day's goals. Imagine, for example, an afternoon when you sit down to work, but focus simply isn't coming. Mirai, sensing signs of procrastination from your intonation and the rhythm of your clicks, steps in. Its voice, calm, serene but firm, says, "Remember why you're here. Start with just 5 minutes, then the rest will come naturally." It's a subtle, almost human reminder that breaks the cycle of distraction, and most intriguingly, this voice can be your own. Mirai can clone the user's timbre and rhythm, creating an experience of heightened self-awareness where the advice literally comes from within, as if a more lucid and focused version of you were guiding the present moment. In another scenario, you're in a chaotic environment with traffic at a standstill, horns honking, notifications, and thoughts racing. Mirai identifies the increase in voice pitch and accelerated breathing pattern. Before stress takes over, it suggests a pause. Breathe with me. 4 seconds to inhale, 4 to hold, 4 to exhale. This intervention isn't a simple voice command, but a calibrated response to your physiological and emotional state. The system doesn't just react, it understands what's going on inside you, even without needing to be told. The same sensitivity applies in moments of impulse. You're about to make an unnecessary purchase, driven by the emotion of the moment. Mirai, sensing the conversation with the salesperson or the tone of your internal dialogue detected through the microphone, intervenes with a strategic phrase. Is this choice aligned with the abundance mindset you want to cultivate? The phrase isn't critical or repressive. It's a gentle but firm reminder that brings your consciousness back into control of your action. Small gestures like these can alter the course of an entire decision. Mirai's psychological power lies precisely in its familiarity. Hearing an unfamiliar voice may sound instructive, but hearing one's own voice has a more profound effect. The mind tends to react with less resistance as it identifies the sound as part of the self. It's as if the system creates an additional layer of consciousness, an inner voice amplified by technology, bringing out the best of rational and emotional thought. This auditory mirror creates a link between identity and behavior, making the act of self-control more natural and less forced.